All right, guys, so we're going to look at how to use grids, guides, how to use the align panel, look at a couple different things. When are we going to use rulers, guides, grids? Well, we're going to use it a lot in InDesign, so it's going to be important that you go ahead and understand how to use these things. All right, so to make sure that we're all on the same page, because we are going to be doing these things, and most of us are not used to picas, all right, which is that standard tool or standard like measurement tool when referring to printing. We're going to go ahead and we're going to change our preferences, our increments to inches, because that's what we should all be familiar with um, for this class. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go up here to InDesign where my cursor is, and we're going to click. We're going to go down to preferences and then over and then down to where my cursor is now resting on units and increments. We're then going to click on that, and then instead right here, we are going to change this and we're going to put it under inches. All right. And we're going to leave, let's see, everything there. Boom. Everything else. So all we have to change are these two right here. And as you can see, you can tell it where to do it from. We're going to do it from the spread. Okay. And then we're just going to click OK. All right. So now from here on out, because we did it from right here, anytime we go out, we create a new file, you are going to be able to see that difference here. So let's go ahead automatically. So you see now how it starts us off in inches. We're gonna go ahead, we're gonna click new file. We got inches, 8.5 by 11 is fine. All right, and we'll just go ahead, leave the margins and everything. We're just gonna click create. That gives us a page to start working with. All right. So to make sure, first of all, you can see that my ruler is already here. It starts right here. All right, as we want it. So right here where the page starts, boom, so we're good, just like we want it. All right, and now what we do want to make sure is that just in case though you ever lose these rulers, I'm going to show you how to get them back. So right here under review across the top, right down here, all right, you can choose hide rulers and they'll disappear. Or if you lose them, you come back and you click show rulers. It's as simple as that. All right, so now to make sure, so generally it already has these guides. All right, the way InDesign sets up, it already shows you the margins as well as column guides. All right, and so you see the margins here. It already gives us that. However, if we do something and we want to add another guide, so all I'm simply doing is clicking and dragging. You can see right here on the left, you can see where it follows it. So right there, I would be adding one right at 1 inch. And if I wanted to bring another one that goes right inside an inch, I can do that. You can see where it gives me my X value right there as I drag. So right here would be the corner of 1 and 1, and it's important to know how to do that. And then we can quickly get rid of these. All right, you can go under guides and grids. You can click hide, delete all guides on spread, and it gets rid of everything that's not default. Okay, so just a couple things to show you there. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to drag down. Let's go ahead and just drag down one at 1 and 1. So you guys go ahead and do that as well. Right, and we're going to leave that one there. So now we can use our guides, and you can actually use these to snap objects or other things to it as we go through. Okay, so it's important to know how to do that as you go. Now, let's show you what I mean by that. So what we're going to do, we're going to go over here. And right here, you have the rectangle tool. You can see where it lit up there as I held over it to show you what it was. All right, and I'm just simply going to drag and create a small rectangle. Now, to move this rectangle, you can see where it stays as a cursor. If I were to drag again, it's going to create another one. I'm going to delete that because that's not what I want. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to choose my selection tool. All right, that's going to allow me, if I click on this black line, it allows me to click and drag this around any way I want. Now, what you're going to see is as I get closer, all right, as I get about right here, it automatically will snap into place because of the guides that I have right there. So try that out. Make sure you can see even if it's going up, you can see it snap right there. All right, it'll automatically do that. So that helps you get everything lined up. It's pretty easy. Those are pretty straightforward things to know. All right, now there's other things. I'm going to go ahead and delete that one, and I'm going to go ahead and while we're doing this, I'm going to get rid of all my guides. There we go. All right, and the next thing we're going to talk about grids. There's actually two main types of grids you can use when you're using InDesign. All right, there's what's known as a baseline grid, and that's going to look like notebook papers. It's going to be horizontal lines, or you've got a document grid, and that looks more like graph papers. It's going to have the horizontal and the vertical lines that go across. Now, I can tell you guys about these all day, but it makes more sense if I just show it to you. So let's go ahead and we're going to click View. All right, and now we're going to scroll down until we find guides and grids. And right here, if we see the baseline grid, as you can see, it looks just like notebook paper. Or we can go back to guides and grids. We're going to get, and now let's just say, let's show a document grid. So obviously that's showing them both. Let me hide that other one. So view, grids. I'm going to hide that baseline grid so you can actually see. So as you can see there, this one looks exactly like that of graph paper, and they're going to both have their own different things, right? So baseline with the notebook paper, it is more for lining up text, where this allows you to line up text as well as objects with whatever you're working on. Okay, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Okay, so let me get rid of this really quick. Grids. I'm going to hide the document grid. So now we have a base setup there. Now, grids come with different presets. So let's make sure we all have the same thing. So we're going to click actually File, Close. All right, we don't have to save this right now. We want to make sure we always have the same thing. We're going to go back up to InDesign and into Preferences. All right, and we are going to look for grids. And as you can see, this box pops up there. Now, what we want to make sure we do is we want to make sure we unclick grids and back option at the bottom. So right here of this, bottom of this, we're going to unclick that. All right, and this is going to allow us to see it a little bit better than we just were before. All right, and we want to make sure that our grid lines, as you can see, grid lines are every every inch. All right, those are going to be the more bolder lines, and it's broken down into 8 sections. So each one gives you an 1/8 of an inch. Okay. After we have that, we're going to click OK. All right, and now let's go see how that changes. So now let's go back into a new one. We've got our preset there. All right, and now let's see how that changes. So we're going to click View. We're going to go down back to Grids and Guides, show baseline. That one didn't change very much, but let's go back, hide baseline, view, grids, and now document grid. And can't see a big difference now, but it will play as we can see more as we go further. Okay, now let's go ahead. I showed you guys how we can snap to the guides. You can do the same thing. So let's go ahead. Let's add in a rectangle here. All right, and as we drag that in back to our selection tool, this is what allows us to move things around. All right, and you probably can't tell as much, but it is snapping in there. If we zoom in, we might be able to see that a little bit better. All right, so I'm going to grab that, and there we go. It allows you to line these things up nearly perfectly. All right, however, let's say it's not snapping to it. All right, that one, because to me, I didn't feel like that snapped as well. All right, we can actually change and make sure it is aligning correctly and snapping to the panel. Okay, so what we want to make sure is going under View, back to Guides and Grids. We want to make sure we have Snap to Guides. If it's not if you not snapping, make sure that is set. All right, that way as we put this in there, it will automatically, and you do have to get pretty close, but it did snap in there right there at the end. Okay, so make sure you guys do have that cut on. All right, the last thing we're going to look at, we don't need our guides for this year, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. I don't really care for them right now. However, I do understand they are important to know. What we're going to do, we already have our rectangle. I'm going to zoom out. So Command minus allows you to zoom out. And I'm actually going to go under Edit and Duplicate. And I'm going to make 5 copies. Yes, you can do it another way, but Edit. I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to have 5 copies of this rectangle. Now, with my selection tool, I'm going to now spread these guys out. All right, and I'm going to spread them out all across the page. All right, and where they're not overlapping in any way or form. All right, so I'm going to Command minus because I want to be able to see my whole page. All right, And as you can see, these are all spread out across the page, right? So now what is important to know is that you guys also understand about the align panel. So if we look over here, I have my properties and pages panel, but I also want to go, and I'm going to go under window right here, go down because I want to have the option to get to my align panel. Okay, so I've got everything made there. We're set up, we're good to go. Now what we want to do is go under window, all right, under object and layout, and you're going to see this option to find align. What this is going to do is going to pull this up, and as you can see, you've got multiple options here. So got this in here where you guys can see it, and I have all of these rectangles. They're kind of in a mess all throughout the page. If I take and I click and I drag, I can select all of these at once. By simply clicking left align, it aligns it to this left side. Everything is lined up with the one that is furthest to the left. And as you can see, they're all in a line perfect there. Now, if I click and select them all again, we can actually take this one step further, all right? And we're gonna say align to selection. I've got everything selected. They're all furthest to the left. And now I want them to be equally spaced out. We can say distribute to vertical centers. And now these guys are equally spaced out from one another across the page. All right. So make sure at that point, I want to make sure you guys have a screenshot. For your screenshot, show this that you have that in there. All right. Have that open. You're going to do Command Shift 4. And this is the screenshot I want you guys to submit to the classroom. All right.